final run into the target.
And it was really a question of victors refueling, victors refueling, victors refueling, and it went on and on and on. And all the time, the formation was being reduced as one victor had given all its fuel and had to go back to ascension.
We had never seen anything like this refueling plan. The real unknown was just how much fuel that Vulcan was going to burn. We used the best information we had, but we had a horrible nagging feeling that it might not be good enough.
If they'd got the plan wrong, aircraft could end up ditching in the freezing South Atlantic Ocean with no hope of rescue. The aircrews assembled for the final briefing on Ascension Island.
Okay, gentlemen, this is a secret briefing.
In a few hours, the mission to bomb the runway at Port Stanley would be taking off on the 8,000-mile round trip.
Right, well, as you know, the reason that we're here is to have a look at the whole refueling operation.
It was the most complicated refueling plan I'd ever seen. To be honest, I picked up probably 60% of what was going on.
2 hours, it's difficult to be
I couldn't take it all in. It would have taken me ages, but I was able to turn to Dick Russell and say to him, do you understand that?
And I had to draw a breath and say, well, yes, I do, with my fingers crossed behind my back.
And these are the final points to remember. So,
and from that, cup of tea, disperse, out to the aircraft, ready to go.
For lead John Reeve and his crew, it would be a hard 16 hours ahead. For reserve Martin Withers' crew, it was supposed to be 4 hours and back for a beer. But that's if Withers could get into the air. He already had a problem. The microphone in his helmet, his bone dome, had stopped working.
My first time going to war, and my bone dome doesn't work, and I like my bone dome. I had that sense of security in it.
In the back, Gordon Graham, the navigator, was also having to make do. The RAF didn't have any maps of the South Atlantic.
Our navigator finished up using a map of the Northern Hemisphere turned upside down.
Gordon changed the Azores into the Falklands.
When we started the launch on that night, I felt that we had about a 40% chance of success.
There was almost a silence, but you could feel this air of expectancy. And then, bang. A victor started up, and another, and another. And the noise grew and grew and grew. And then there was a sudden change in the noise, and it was the first Vulcan starting. The Vulcan just looked fabulous, menacing, full of authority as it taxied onto the runway. I mean, I was desperately sorry not to be in it. But I had a lump in my throat as it went off down the runway, followed by the second one.
2306, second Vulcan. 2308, blue section, 5 aircraft.
And then they were gone, and there was silence.
In radio silence, to make sure there were no listening ears that could alert the Argentinians, the vast armada set off for the Falklands. But in the lead Vulcan, it wasn't about to be Reeves' night.
Monty Python couldn't have done it any better. It all seemed to be going so well. The engines have started, the aircraft's working. What can possibly go wrong? I could hear this hissing sound from the window.
Stand by.
We got airborne, the whistling got worse, and the indication said the aircraft isn't pressurising. And I thought, no, it's happened once before in 9 years on the V-Force. It can't be happening now. And it was.
With no cabin pressure, Reeve and his crew will slowly freeze and run out of oxygen.
There's no official drill for what to do, but you try all the things you can think of. We had sandwiches in polythene wrapping and got the polythene off and tried to jam that in. I think I tried to jam a flying jacket, anything in there to try and stop it.
That's not working.
Of course, we had to turn back then. Obviously not a happy bunny.
Just 4 minutes after takeoff, and it's all starting to unravel.
Base Commander, primary Vulcan unserviceable.
Reeve breaks radio silence to say he's returning to base. On the backup Vulcan, Withers also hears the transmission.
Base Commander, primary Vulcan unserviceable.
We were now the primary Vulcan. We were on, and there was a deathly silence. Nobody actually said anything.
Gulp. Yes, it's us now.
So I came up with a real sort of boy's own statement like,
Looks like we've got a job of work to do, fellas.
The success of the whole mission now rests on Withers and his crew. Withers starts refueling with the Victors. It's the first of 4 contacts over the 8-hour journey to the Falklands. But when the empty Victors start returning to Ascension, they make a terrible discovery. The aircraft are so low on fuel, they have barely made it back.
The Victors coming back made it quite clear that the Vulcan was using more fuel than we had calculated. We were worried. I was worried.
With not enough fuel, the whole mission is in jeopardy. But in radio silence, Withers in the Vulcan is blissfully unaware of the impending disaster.
we weren't really keeping an eye on how much fuel we got. And it's a bit like, you know, in a motor race, you know, that you just go around and as long as you've got fuel in the tank, that's all you're worried about.
Then, with 2 refuelings left, the sortie hits a major electrical storm.
It's always the same. When the chips are down, you run into turbulence. And did we run into turbulence?
And it's now that the last 2 remaining Victors must refuel. Flying in the rear Victor, Bob Tuxford knows if he can't get fuel, the mission is over.
I was becoming acutely aware that the whole success of the mission now rested on the shoulders of me and my crew.
Okay, I need to back off a little bit. Christ, this is difficult. It's all over the bloody place.
A miracle happened.
Contact.
I couldn't believe it. Not only did he get in, he stayed in.
Yeah, fuel flows again. That's it. Thank you, Phil.
Bob Tuxford, I take my hat off. Good job, Bob.
But as Tuxford's Victor completes refueling and flies out of the storm, the crew make an alarming calculation. There isn't enough fuel.
We were well short, to the point where we wouldn't actually be able to make the island back at Ascension.
Tuxford asks the crew what they want to do.
Right, we either turn back now, pretty sharpish, or at least press on in the knowledge that we've got to come up with some sort of alternate plan. I need you all to speak now and give me your view whether we continue or turn back.
Without hesitation, each one of my 4 crew members said that we've come this far, we'll press on.
Their decision means that they may be forced to ditch with little hope of rescue. Six and a half hours since leaving Ascension, it's time for the final refuel. But Tuxford, in the Victor, can't risk breaking radio silence to tell the Vulcan there's barely enough fuel to complete the mission.
Everything seemed to be going well, taking fuel quite normally, and then, much to my surprise and Dick's surprise sitting beside me, they put the light on.
Okay, Annie, give in the lights.
The red light flashed, and so we had to brake. If the red light flashes, you brake. Come what may, you brake.
Bloody hell, how much have they given us?
But I said, this must be a mistake.
£5,000, Captain.
Because, you know, we still need about another £7,000 of fuel. We'll have to abort the mission.
The Vulcan had expected a full tank. But they've had all the fuel the Victor tanker can spare.
So we broke off. I was absolutely amazed and actually very annoyed because I couldn't believe they could do that to us.
As the Victor turns to head back to Ascension, a furious Withers briefly breaks radio silence.
We received 2 words.
We're off.
Which sounded like, we're